He said, "You'll never touch my money again." The judge read my letter and couldn't stop laughing. I'm talking full-on, hand-over-mouth, shoulders-shaking laughter that echoed through courtroom 4B of the King County Family Court. The kind of laughter that makes court reporters stop typing and bailiffs exchange confused glances. The kind that makes your soon-to-be ex-husband's extremely expensive attorney set down his Mont Blanc pen and lean forward like he's trying to understand what just went wrong. My ex-husband, Derek Castellano, sat at the defendant's table in his custom Tom Ford suit, the one he'd bought specifically for these proceedings, because he wanted to look like the successful businessman he was. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. His attorney, Richard Morse, had gone pale, like actually pale, which is hard to do under fluorescent courthouse lighting. Judge Patricia Morrison wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, composed herself for approximately 3 seconds, then started laughing again. She held up the letter I'd submitted as evidence, 8 pages of printed documentation, meticulously cited, with highlighted sections and footnotes, and shook her head. "Mr. Morse," she finally managed, her voice still thick with amusement, "does your client understand what discovery means?" Richard Morse stood up slowly. "Your Honor, if I could have a moment to—" "Sit down, Mr. Morse." Judge Morrison's smile had shifted into something sharper. "I'm not asking you. I'm asking Mr. Castellano." Derek stood up without being invited to. Big mistake. Judges hate that. "Your Honor, my wife has clearly manipulated—" "Ex-wife," I corrected quietly from my seat. My attorney, Sandra Park, touched my arm in warning, but the corner of her mouth was twitching. Judge Morrison held up one finger. "Mr. Castellano, did you or did you not state, in a text message to your wife dated March 14th of this year, and I quote, 'You'll never see a dime of my money. I've made sure of it. My lawyer says you're screwed.'" The courtroom went silent. Derek's face cycled through several colors. "I was angry," he said. "People say things when they're—" "And did you," Judge Morrison continued, flipping through my letter, "subsequently transfer $473,000 from your joint investment account to an LLC registered in your name only, believing this would shield those assets from equitable division?" Derek's attorney stood up again. "Your Honor, my client was advised—" "By you?" Judge Morrison looked at him over her reading glasses. "Because if you advised your client to commit financial fraud during active divorce proceedings, Mr. Morse, we have a much bigger problem than division of assets." "It wasn't fraud," Derek burst out. "It was my money. I earned it. She sat at home doing nothing for 15 years while I built my business." Judge Morrison set the letter down. Her expression had gone from amused to glacial. "Mr. Castellano, your wife holds a CPA license, a master's degree in forensic accounting, and spent 12 years working as a senior auditor before you convinced her to quit and focus on the family. Is that correct?" Derek said nothing. "Additionally," the judge continued, picking up another document, "your wife's submitted evidence includes complete transaction histories from 17 bank accounts, 3 credit cards, 2 investment portfolios, and 1 offshore account in the Cayman Islands that you thought you'd hidden. She's also provided documentation showing that you used marital funds to purchase property in your girlfriend's name, pay for said girlfriend's cosmetic surgery, and lease a BMW you claimed was a business expense. Do I have that right, Ms. Park?" Sandra stood. "That's correct, Your Honor," along with documentation of Mr. Castellano's attempts to underreport business income, hide cash assets, and transfer valuables to his brother for safekeeping. "All of which," Judge Morrison said, "Mrs. Castellano tracked, documented, and annotated with the kind of detail I usually only see from federal prosecutors." She looked at me directly for the first time. "Mrs. Castellano, did you do all of this yourself?" I stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "How long did it take you?" "About 6 months," I said. "Once I realized what my husband was planning, I started keeping records. Every transaction, every transfer, every hidden account. I cross-referenced bank statements with credit card bills, matched suspicious cash withdrawals to unexplained deposits, and traced the LLC formation back to its initial funding source, which was our joint savings account. Judge Morrison nodded slowly. And the offshore account? I found the account number written on a sticky note in his desk drawer, I said. He'd put it under his passport. I photographed it, looked up the bank, and requested transaction histories using the power of attorney I still had from when he was traveling for business and needed me to handle paperwork. Derek made a strangled sound. That's illegal. She invaded my privacy. You gave her power of attorney, Judge Morrison said flatly. She had legal access. What's illegal is hiding marital assets during divorce proceedings. She picked up my letter again. Mrs. Castellano, it says here you created a spreadsheet tracking every dollar your husband spent on his extramarital affair, down to individual restaurant receipts. Yes, Your Honor. It comes to approximately $97,000 over 18 months, all from joint accounts or credit cards I was legally entitled to monitor. The judge flipped to another page. And you've calculated the precise amount he underpaid you in household allowance while you managed the home, raised 2 children, and handled all domestic finances? $342,000, I said, based on fair market value for household management, child care, personal assistance, and bookkeeping. I used industry standard rates and documented every task. Judge Morrison leaned back in her chair. Mr. Castellano, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Derek swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. Did you really think you could hide money from a forensic accountant? The courtroom erupted in muffled laughter. Derek's face went from red to purple. Before I tell you exactly how we got here, how my husband's arrogance led him to commit every rookie mistake in the divorce fraud playbook, and what Judge Morrison's final ruling cost him, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button if you've ever watched someone underestimate you and then had the satisfaction of proving exactly how wrong they were. Because what happened next made Derek Castellano regret every single text message, every hidden account, and every time he assumed I was too stupid to notice what he was doing. Now let me take you back to where this actually started. My name is Lauren Castellano. Well, it was. Now it's Lauren Mitchell again, and honestly, that feels better than it has in years. 15 years ago, I was a senior auditor at Morrison & Chen, one of the top accounting firms in Seattle. I specialized in forensic accounting, the kind of work where you dig through years of financial records looking for fraud, embezzlement, and creative bookkeeping that crosses legal lines. I was good at it, really good. I'd helped catch a CFO who'd been skimming funds for 7 years and a construction company owner who'd been running a cash business on the side to avoid taxes. I loved the work, the puzzle of it, the satisfaction of finding patterns other people missed, the moment when all the numbers finally clicked into place and you could see exactly what someone had tried to hide. Then I met Derek. He was a client, technically. Not mine. I was auditing his partner's company, and Derek ran a separate software consulting business. But we met in the lobby one morning when I was coming in early, and he was coming in for a meeting. He had that confidence that successful men wear like cologne. Expensive suit, easy smile, the kind of eye contact that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. He asked me to coffee. Then dinner. Then a weekend in Vancouver. 6 months later, he proposed on a beach in Maui with a 2-carat diamond and a speech about building a life together. I said yes. We got married at a vineyard in Woodinville, 300 guests, string quartet, flowers shipped from Holland. My parents cried. His parents gave a toast about how Derek had finally found someone worthy of him. I smiled through all of it, believing I'd found my person. The first 5 years were good. We bought a house in Bellevue with a view of Lake Washington. Derek's business grew. I made partner track at Morrison & Chen. We talked about starting a family but kept putting it off because we were both so focused on our careers. Then I got pregnant with our daughter, Emma. Derek was thrilled, said it was perfect timing. His business was stable enough that we didn't need my income. I could take maternity leave, spend time with the baby, maybe consider going part-time when I was ready. I took 6 months, went back full-time, hired a nanny. Derek hated it. He started making comments about daycare germs and attachment issues, about how his mother had stayed home and he'd turned out fine, about how we didn't need the money and Emma needed her mother. When Emma was 18 months old, I got pregnant again. Surprise. Our son, Lucas. This time, Derek sat me down with spreadsheets. He'd calculated our budget, factored in the nanny costs for 2 kids, and showed me that after taxes and childcare, my salary basically broke even. "You're working to pay someone else to raise our kids," he said. "Does that make sense to you?" He wasn't wrong about the math, but there was something about the way he presented it, like he'd been waiting for this moment, like he'd been building this case for months. I quit when Lucas was 6 months old. Derek threw a party to celebrate, called it my retirement. I remember standing in our kitchen surrounded by his colleagues and their wives, all of them congratulating me on making the right choice, and feeling something inside me go quiet and cold. The first year of staying home was brutal. I went from managing complex audits and high-stakes clients to managing nap schedules and grocery lists. Derek worked longer hours, said he had to, now that he was the sole provider. He'd come home at 8, eat the dinner I'd kept warm, and retreat to his office for conference calls that lasted until midnight. I told myself it was temporary. Once the kids were in school, I'd go back to work, update my CPA license, rebuild my network. Derek had other ideas. When Emma started kindergarten, I mentioned updating my resume. Derek frowned and said, "The kids still need you home. What about after-school pickups? Homework help? Summer break?" When I brought up part-time consulting work, he said, "We don't need the money. Why add stress?" When I suggested volunteering for a nonprofit board to keep my skills sharp, he said, "That sounds like a lot of commitment. What about family time?" Every door I tried to open, Derek closed with concern that sounded reasonable but felt like cement. By year 10, I'd stopped trying. I managed the household, raised the kids, organized Derek's schedule, and handled every piece of domestic infrastructure so his life could run smoothly. I became very good at being invisible. Derek's business exploded during those years. The software consulting firm he'd started from scratch grew into a 20-person operation with Fortune 500 clients. He traveled constantly, Singapore, London, New York. He'd come home exhausted and important, talking about deals and contracts and expansion plans. I listened and asked questions and pretended not to notice that he stopped touching me unless he wanted something. The affair started about 2 years ago. I know because that's when the credit card bills started showing double charges at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel rooms in cities where he claimed he was staying with clients, flowers I never received. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I did what I was trained to do. I started documenting every receipt, every statement, every suspicious charge. I photographed documents when he wasn't looking. I logged into our bank accounts and downloaded transaction histories. I created spreadsheets tracking his spending patterns and flagging anomalies. I found her name after 3 weeks. Brianna Winters, marketing consultant he'd hired for a rebrand. 28 years old, UCLA grad, Instagram full of vacation photos and gym selfies. He'd used the business credit card to pay for her to join him in Miami, charged it as consulting services. I documented that too. 6 months ago, Derek came home from another business trip, dropped his luggage in the hallway, and told me he wanted a divorce. Just like that, standing in our kitchen. No preamble, no apology. "I'm not happy," he said. "I haven't been happy for years. We've grown apart. It's nobody's fault, but I think it's time we both moved on." I asked if there was someone else. He said no. I didn't argue, I just said okay. He looked surprised. Maybe disappointed that I wasn't going to beg. "I'll have my attorney draw up the paperwork," he said. "I'll be fair, you'll be taken care of." 2 weeks later, I received the divorce petition, along with a proposed settlement that gave me the house, a lump sum payment of $200,000, and child support of $3,000 a month. For a marriage to a man whose business was worth millions. I read the proposal 3 times. Then I called Sandra Park, the most aggressive divorce attorney in Seattle. "How good are you at forensic accounting?" I asked her. She laughed. "Not as good as you, probably. Why?" "Because I have 15 years of financial documentation on my husband, and I think you're going to want to see it." We met the next day. I brought 17 file boxes. Sandra's eyes got wider with every box I opened. Bank statements going back 12 years. Credit card bills highlighted with notes about suspicious charges. Spreadsheets tracking business income versus reported income. Documentation of the LLC formation. Transaction records from the offshore account. Screenshots of texts about hiding money. Photos of jewelry receipts for gifts I'd never received. "How long did this take you?" Sandra asked. 2 years of active documentation, I said. But I've been saving statements and records for the entire marriage, force of habit from my old job. Sandra looked at me like I was a bomb she'd just been handed. "Lauren," she said slowly, "your husband is screwed." "Good," I said. We spent 3 months building the case. Every hidden account, every suspicious transfer, every dollar spent on the affair. Sandra filed motions for complete financial disclosure. Derek's attorney pushed back, claiming privacy concerns and business confidentiality. Judge Morrison ordered full discovery. That's when Derek texted me, "You'll never see a dime of my money. I've made sure of it. My lawyer says you're screwed." I screenshot it and sent it to Sandra. Her response, "Please tell me he's stupid enough to actually hide assets now." He was. Over the next 60 days, I tracked him moving money to the LLC, transferring funds to his brother's account, and buying a boat he registered in Brianna's name. I documented every single transaction. That's how we ended up in courtroom 4B with Judge Morrison reading my 8-page letter and laughing at a man who thought he could outsmart a forensic accountant. After Judge Morrison finished laughing, the courtroom went completely silent. The kind of silence that feels heavy, dangerous. Derek's attorney, Richard Morse, stood up one more time. "Your Honor, I'd like to request a recess to consult with my client." "Denied," Judge Morrison said. "We're finishing this today. I've read every document submitted by both parties, and frankly, Mr. Morse, I'm insulted you thought this court wouldn't notice what your client was attempting." "Your Honor, with respect—" "Let me be clear," the judge interrupted. Mr. Castellano engaged in systematic financial fraud during active divorce proceedings. He lied about his income. He hid assets. He transferred marital funds to avoid equitable distribution. And he did it all while texting his wife to brag about it. She held up her phone. "I have screenshots, Mr. Morse. Your client literally put his fraud in writing." Derek started to stand again. Richard grabbed his arm and forced him back down. Smart. Judge Morrison looked ready to hold him in contempt just for breathing wrong. "Mrs. Castellano," the judge said, turning to me, "you've provided this court with documentation that I would expect from a criminal investigation. Walk me through your methodology." Sandra gave me a nod. I stood. "Your Honor, I started with our joint accounts and traced every transaction over 24 months. When I noticed patterns, large cash withdrawals that didn't match any purchases, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, I flagged them. Then I cross-referenced credit card statements with bank withdrawals to identify discrepancies. Such as? For example, in July of last year, Derek withdrew $8,000 in cash from our savings account. The withdrawal slip said it was for home repairs, but none of our credit cards or checking accounts showed any payments to contractors that month. 2 weeks later, I found a jewelry receipt in his car for a $7,000 bracelet. I'd never seen the bracelet. I photographed the receipt and matched the date to the cash withdrawal. Judge Morrison nodded. Continue. Once I identified the affair-related expenses, I expanded the scope. I requested transaction histories from our joint credit cards going back 5 years. I found multiple hotel charges, restaurant bills, and gift purchases that coincided with business trips where Derek claimed he was staying with clients or colleagues. I contacted 3 of those clients directly, posing as Derek's assistant confirming billing, and discovered he'd actually stayed in hotels, not with them as he'd told me. Derek's face was purple now. Richard had his head in his hands. I also noticed unusual business expenses, I continued. Derek's LLC showed substantial payments to a marketing consultant, Brianna Winters, that seemed disproportionate to the actual work product. I compared her invoices to industry standard rates and found she was being paid approximately 40% above market rate. I believe the excess payments were a way to funnel money to her. Do you have proof? Judge Morrison asked. I have her invoices, comparisons to 3 other marketing consultants, and credit card statements showing Derek paying for her rent directly from his business account. He coded it as contractor housing, but the lease is in her name and the property is a luxury condo in downtown Seattle, not temporary housing. Sandra stood. Your Honor, we've also subpoenaed Ms. Winters' bank records. She's not a party to this divorce, but her financial connection to marital assets makes her relevant. Those records show direct deposits from Mr. Castellano's business, totaling over $200,000 in the past 18 months. Judge Morrison flipped through more papers. Mr. Morse, would you like to respond to any of this? Richard stood slowly. He looked like a man who'd been run over by a truck and was now being asked to describe the experience. Your Honor, my client maintains that his business expenses are legitimate, and that any personal relationship he may have developed was not funded by marital assets. Not funded by marital assets? Judge Morrison's voice could have cut glass. Mr. Morse, his wife has documented $97,000 in affair-related expenses from joint accounts. The money in that business account is marital property. The LLC was formed during the marriage using marital funds. Everything your client spent on his girlfriend is subject to division. We dispute the characterization. I don't care what you dispute, the judge snapped. The evidence is overwhelming. Your client committed fraud. And worse, he did it incompetently. He left a paper trail that a first-year law student could follow. She turned back to me. Mrs. Castellano, what are you seeking in terms of settlement? Sandra answered. Your Honor, we're asking for 60% of all marital assets, including the business, all bank accounts, investment portfolios, the house, and reimbursement for the $97,000 spent on the affair. We're also requesting full physical custody of the children with supervised visitation for Mr. Castellano, child support of $8,000 per month, and spousal support of $12,000 per month for 10 years. Derek exploded. That's insane. You're trying to destroy me. Mr. Castellano, sit down, Judge Morrison ordered. Your wife is trying to get what she's legally entitled to after you attempted to cheat her out of it. I built that business, Derek shouted. She did nothing. She sat at home while I worked 80-hour weeks. She managed your household, raised your children, and provided uncompensated labor that allowed you to build that business, the judge shot back. And then, when you decided to discard her, she had the intelligence and skill to document every way you tried to defraud her. That's not nothing, Mr. Castellano. That's the smartest thing anyone's done in this courtroom today. She looked down at her notes. Here's what's going to happen. I'm awarding Mrs. Castellano 55% of all marital assets. That includes the business, which will be independently valued. I'm ordering Mr. Castellano to reimburse Mrs. Castellano for 100% of documented affair-related expenses from joint accounts. That's $97,000 plus interest. Derek made a choking sound. I'm awarding primary physical custody to Mrs. Castellano with a standard visitation schedule for Mr. Castellano. No supervision required unless Mrs. Castellano can demonstrate a safety concern. Child support will be $7,500 per month based on Mr. Castellano's actual income, not the amount he reported on his initial financial disclosure. She flipped another page. Spousal support will be $10,000 per month for 12 years. Mrs. Castellano sacrificed her career at Mr. Castellano's request. She's entitled to support while she rebuilds. Your Honor, Richard tried. I'm not finished, Judge Morrison said coldly. I'm also ordering Mr. Castellano to pay Mrs. Castellano's attorney fees in full. All of them. Every hour, every filing, every cost associated with uncovering his fraud. Sandra squeezed my hand under the table. And finally, the judge said, I'm referring this matter to the Washington State Bar Association for review of Mr. Morse's conduct. If you advised your client to hide assets, Mr. Morse, you'll be answering for that. Richard Morse went white. Your Honor, I assure you I provided appropriate counsel, then your client ignored it spectacularly, Judge Morrison said. Either way, the bar will investigate. This court is adjourned. She banged her gavel. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Derek lunged across the aisle toward me. You vindictive... The bailiff intercepted him. 2 seconds later, Derek was face down on the defense table with his hands being zip-tied behind his back. Mr. Castellano, Judge Morrison said, her voice like ice, you're being held in contempt. You'll spend the next 48 hours in county jail thinking about why threatening people in courtrooms is a bad idea. They hauled him out still screaming. Something about how I'd ruined his life. How he'd given me everything. How I was ungrateful. I watched him go and felt nothing but tired relief. Sandra turned to me, grinning. That might be the most satisfying ruling I've ever witnessed. How much do you think the business is worth? I asked, based on the financials you pulled. Conservatively, $4 million, maybe more. I did the math in my head. 55% of $4 million, plus the house, plus reimbursement, plus support. He's going to lose everything, I said. No, Sandra corrected. He's going to lose what he tried to keep from you. There's a difference. We walked out of the courthouse into Seattle drizzle. My phone started buzzing immediately. Texts from friends who'd heard through the legal community grapevine. Calls from family. A message from my old boss at Morrison & Chen. Heard you just destroyed someone in court. We have an opening if you're interested in coming back. I stood on the courthouse steps and let the rain hit my face. 15 years. I'd spent 15 years making myself smaller so Derek could feel bigger. 15 years being told my skills didn't matter, my career didn't matter, my work didn't matter. Turns out they mattered a lot. 3 months after the judgment, I'm sitting in a corner office at Morrison & Chen with my CPA license renewed and a job title that says Senior Forensic Consultant. The business valuation came back at $4.2 million. My 55% came to $2.3 million, plus the house, which appraised at $1.1 million, plus the $97,000 in reimbursement, plus Derek's attorney fees, which totaled $83,000. Derek had to take a loan against the business to pay me. His 45% stake is now leveraged to the point where he's basically working to pay off debt for the next decade. The offshore account turned out to have another $200,000 he'd forgotten about. Judge Morrison was not amused when that came out during asset disclosure. She awarded me 75% of that account as a penalty for perjury. Derek's brother had to return the $80,000 Derek had transferred to him for safekeeping. Turns out judges really don't like it when you involve family members in fraud. The boat Derek bought in Brianna's name, seized and sold. The proceeds went into the marital asset pool. Brianna dumped him 2 weeks later when she realized he was broke. Last I heard, she moved to Portland and blocked his number. Richard Morse, Derek's attorney, is under investigation by the Bar Association. I don't know if anything will come of it, but the fact that it's happening at all seems to have made him persona non grata in the family law community. His firm quietly asked him to resign. Derek has the kids every other weekend. He's renting a 2-bedroom apartment in Renton and driving a 6-year-old Honda because he had to sell the Porsche to cover his debts. Emma told me he cries sometimes when he picks them up. Lucas asked me why Daddy doesn't live in a big house anymore. I told them their father made some bad choices, but he still loves them. I don't know if that's true, but they deserve to believe it for now. Mom calls every week to tell me how proud she is. Dad sends articles about women in accounting like I'm still in college and needs career inspiration. My sister, who went through her own divorce 5 years ago, texts me memes about terrible ex-husbands and sends wine. I've been on 3 dates, all disasters. Apparently, I destroyed my ex-husband in court using forensic accounting is not a great opening line. Who knew? But I don't care. I have my career back. I have my kids. I have a bank account that I control and a future that belongs to me. Morrison and Chen offered me a partnership track. My first case is a CEO who's been embezzling from his own company for 8 years. Looking at his files makes me smile. It's like coming home. I ran into Derek once about a month ago. Grocery store. He was in the produce section looking at organic apples like they personally offended him. He saw me and froze. I grabbed my cart and started to walk past. Then stopped. "Derek," I said. He didn't respond. "You were right about one thing," I told him. "I did sit at home for 15 years. And during that time I watched every single financial move you made. Every account you opened, every transfer you executed, every lie you told." His jaw clenched. "So thank you," I said, "for underestimating me long enough that I could document every single way you tried to screw me over. Made my job a lot easier." I walked away. Behind me, I heard something hit the floor. Probably the apples. I didn't look back. Some nights I sit in my new condo, the one I bought with my settlement money, the one with a view of Elliott Bay and room for the kids to have their own space, and think about the woman I was when I quit my job 15 years ago. She believed marriage meant compromise, that being a good wife meant supporting her husband's dreams even when it meant sacrificing her own. That love was supposed to be enough. I don't blame her. She didn't know yet what I know now. That the best thing you can do when someone tries to destroy you is survive with evidence. That being underestimated is a weapon if you're smart enough to use it. That the person who controls the information controls the outcome. And that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's just being better at the game than they ever imagined you could be. Derek thought he married someone who'd be easy to discard. Someone who'd spent so long out of the workforce she'd be helpless without him. Someone who wouldn't know how to fight back. Instead, he married a forensic accountant who spent 15 years documenting his every move. Judge Morrison was right to laugh. It was the stupidest mistake Derek Castellano ever made, and the luckiest break I ever got. If you've ever been underestimated, drop a comment below and subscribe. If you've ever watched someone try to cheat you and then had the satisfaction of proving exactly what they did, hit that like button. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't fire, it's a spreadsheet, a courtroom, and a judge who understands exactly what she's reading. My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm a forensic accountant. And I just want to say to anyone out there who thinks their spouse is too trusting, too soft, or too far removed from their career, to notice what you're doing. We notice everything. We just wait until we have proof.